Hello everyone, my name is Jake Rhodes with ADJ. Welcome back to another live stream, part of our summer educational series. I'm glad to be back. Thanks for being here and listening to me ramble on. I really enjoy talking to you guys, and I really like kind of like the outreach we get to have during these live streams and kind of the community, you know, that's what we are. We are a community, and being able to talk to you guys and listen to your questions is a lot of fun, and I'm really glad to be starting these back again. So today, what are we going over? We are going over myDMX 3.0, which either can come in a lot of different options, like this little box here, or as a rack mount. These are the boxes that we would purchase from us, and then on top of that, the software, which is actually free to download online. So if you want to either come along with me and mess around with it, or if you just want to download it later to try for yourself, feel free. So myDMX 3.0, what is it? It's a lighting software program where it kind of lies, for us in terms of marketing. It's very much a lower mid-range product. It's not the most advanced controller we sell. It's also not the most basic. myDMX 3.0 is really good for people who need to have 100% control of all their fixtures and need to be able to dial it in to a T, but still be able to easily program it, This is a good program for people who aren't necessarily console people, who understand the large amounts of DMX and programming that goes into other consoles. So for people that want something that's really easy, something that's very intuitive, myDMX 3.0 is super great. Some applications that I think myDMX 3.0 are really great for is, to put it bluntly, any sort of application where you need to set up and then have someone else who is not the programmer play back. Or if you are a programmer and you love programming, this is great for you too. However, this is really great for people who are new to intro to lighting. So, such as that for bars, nightclubs, and we'll get a little bit more into the installs when I talk about the RM, but also for churches, all sorts of different applications. That being said, let's get into it. Let's switch over to my screen and I'll get started here. Awesome. So the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to programming is the patch. So this is the patch screen. However, before we even talk about that, I want to talk about one thing, is actually the warranty registration. So before you even get to this point, when you open your box of your RM and or the myDMX 3.0, there's this little black card and it has your warranty registration information on it. What you need to do is go over to dmxsoft.com, and go ahead and make an account, sign in, register your device. This is where you can purchase upgrades for different licenses, buy more universes, buy ArtNet, and some more functionalities you can purchase in the future I will talk about. However, right now, for today, we're just going to go over the express mode of myDMX 3.0, which is exactly what you get out of the box without any upgrades. So that is how you register your device. Then the first thing you'll want to do is patch your lights. So we'll go over here to my left, and this is the scan library. And just like almost every one of our other controllers, other than the Airstream devices, these profiles operate off of SSL2 profiles. So if you have a profile that is for myDMX 2.0, 2.1, or CompuShow, which is our more full-line console, these will all work in here. And if you're familiar with those, this will be very familiar to you. However, let's get started. So first up here, let's just talk about what we're looking at here. Again, this is the patch screen. Right here, you can type in any fixture you want, and it'll pop up. And if it is in the library, it'll pop up. As you can see, there are a lot of different manufacturers that are in this library. However, if you have a light that's not in the library, there is an included SSL2 editor, which is very easy to use. But if you don't feel comfortable making your own profile, feel free to email us at support and we can make you a profile, or if we don't have it already. So what you will see when you open it is probably starting at generic and then varied and then go down from here. However, what you'll see on my screen is I have a really cool My Lights and Prototypes folder. I always put my lights, the lights that I will be using or I used very often, into its own folder, which is My Lights. And you can create this, it's different on Mac, but on PC, you can go here under the File Explorer, go to OC, your drive, your C drive, and you're going to go to myDMX 3.0. And this is where all the internal hardware and stuff is. Hardware Manager, your scan library editor. So if you want to go into that and not opening the program, you can go this way. However, I'm going to go into scan library. And then here is essentially, let me move this to the side, this exact list, but here. So now I can make a new folder, call it whatever I want, and they are sorted alphabetically. So my lights are right there. Like I actually just mentioned, I forgot to mention before, this software, myDMX 3.0, is available on both Mac and PC. So no matter what you have, you can run it through any of those different types of laptops or PCs, whatever floats your boat. So I already have my lights patched in here. This is a very simple rig, so I just wanted to show you how the lights respond to commands I give it. So for Truss Warmers, I have two 7P hex IPs. Hex chip gives some great colors. So I love those for Truss Warmers only because they give a great color spectrum. And I have two Focus Spot 2Xs, which is one of our most entry-level, one of our best entry-level lights in my opinion. Stepped up from the regular 2 to I think it was a 75 watt to a 100 watt chip. And it's just a really nice, compact yet effective light. And then right in the middle, can't see it, but you'll see it later, I have a UB12H, which is a nice wash bar, or for pixelized effects. So we are just going to go in here and patch a generic CMY channel. Again, so many different profiles you can choose from here. I'm just going to choose this one. So down here, actually, I'm going to show you one more thing before I patch that. For example, so for my UB12H, you'll notice if I click this one, unlike when I click CMY, there's different modes. And almost every light you get other than a single, unless it's a single channel dimmer, will have different DMX modes to it. So if I click this one, you can see right here, it's 6 channel. Then I move down 10 channel, 12 channel, 36 channel. And it's not very obvious what that means from the patch screen. However, if you're using the same lights over and over again, you'll quickly find what lights and what channel modes works for you. Check your manual, and that's how you can tell what channel mode you want to run in. All right, CMY, 3 channels. DMX Universe, out of the box, it only comes with one DMX Universe. However, you can purchase more universes over ArtNet online. So this only comes up here. First DMX channel, as you can see, 99 is my first DMX channel I can patch in my universe. And number of fixtures. You can choose exactly how many you wanted these to patch. So go ahead and hit the patch screen. There's my CMY. All right, so from here, let's talk about this screen. We kind of went over this patch screen, or the library part. Now let's go over the patch. Here's where we can add multiple universes. I'm not pressing this button. It's very simple. More options here, copy. So if you this is highlighted, as you can see, it turns darker gray. So that's the one I have selected. You can either copy, paste, duplicate, rename. So for instance, if I wanted to rename my 7P hexes as Truss, I could rename them as Truss Warmers. Then when I go down here, we'll talk about this screen later, this will be labeled Truss Warmers. So for people that really want it super easy to use, especially for people like for churches volunteers that don't know what 7P hex IPs are or where they're placed, when you call them Truss Warmers, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Or you can even separate them into different areas, but we won't get into that for this video at least. Moving on, we will have the delete button, and I'm going to highlight my CMY, and we also have list view, and for all you old school people out there, you'll know exactly what this is. I have a feeling our more modern or people who are still in school now learning about lighting will not know what this is. This is basically a dip switch calculator. So before we had all these fancy screens and such, you had to actually address your unit with dip switches. So this will tell you exactly what dip switch configuration you need to put on your light. This is good also for DMX encoders when you're trying to do pixel tape, etc., etc. It's there as a resource. So now that we're done showing you how to patch, I can delete my CMY as simple as highlighting it, click delete, delete fixture, yes. All right. That's the patch screen. Simple and very easy to use. Now let's move on. So we have all our lights patched. Now let's go to the edit screen. And there's a lot to talk about here. Let's talk about the different buttons, starting from top left, moving right. You'll notice up here that there's different tabs, and as I select them, they're actually being highlighted. So what these are called groups. And during our edit screen, it won't be very obvious why these are important. However, when we go to our live screen, they will. And I'll demo this right now. So under general looks, you can select one at a time. Under each group, you can select one look at a time, and that's why you separate them. So for instance, I have all my different looks here. But if I wanted to make a general look out of different lights, so for instance, my Truss Warmers, red, and I can make green, blue, etc., etc. Then for my spots, I can do spots on, spot prism, over and over again, etc., etc. Then I can have another one for my bar here. You can go to your live mode and select them all together. So that's how you kind of layer to make different looks. As opposed to here, general look, they have them all programmed together. So these are how groups are very effective. All right, we talked about groups, so we can move on from that. Now here are all the different, well, they're actually called buttons in CompuShow, but I believe they call them scenes here, but essentially they're the same thing, buttons, scenes. So one thing that I think is very valuable to know, if you create a scene, for instance, let's take my red scene here. I have my focus spot 2x is exactly where I want them. Instead of hitting new scene down here, this will reset everything to its home value. You can right-click, hit duplicate. So I'm going to delete this scene really fast. Go to my red scene, right-click, duplicate. Now I have red 2, and I can start from here as opposed to starting from scratch. I'm going to delete this because I don't need this anymore. So, yeah, here we go. Red, green, blue, white. So here's all the buttons that I have already pre-programmed, and I'll show you why I pre-programmed 15 of them on our very last step when we talk about port mapping with the DMX RM. Let's continue talking about the edit screen and move over here to properties. So let's start fresh. Let's start from this red like we had before, just so we can play around and you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Under properties, the first thing you see here is this bar, and you can name this whatever you want. For instance, I have blackout, red, green, blue, pink with blue prisms, etc., etc. We can name this testing. We can name this testing switch. So this is where you name your different buttons. This is where you can delete the name altogether. This I right here, again, won't be very evident what it does. However, what this does is actually makes it hidden, this button hidden in live. So if I have this hidden here, go over to the live, it won't show up. However, if I do have the eye bright, not hidden, it will show up. This is nice for when you have things on your show tab, but don't generally use a lot, etc., etc. Moving on, you can also change the color of your look. So if I wanted this box to be green, let me change it to a more evident color, red. So now this has that's more of a salmon kind of tone, etc., etc. You can color coordinate your different buttons or switches. So basically, it's just optimization on how it's just a workflow optimization. So you can basically see every single button switch easier. Moving on, let's move down. Loops. So again, this is not evident from the edit screen. However, if I go over to my live screen, even if I hit blackout, which essentially is actually just homing my fixtures, you'll see this time bar this time lapse go through. And this is essentially because this one look is a 1 second long look that repeats itself, which now is evident why it's loops. So for our blackout scene, you can select always loop and release at end. So you can set the number of times it loops. For instance, you can have a unit turn on, zoom in, zoom out, then come off, turn off, and then you could set it to not loop at the very end and then release it at its end. So that's loops. You can also select jump to, which is actually a very cool feature, because if you are doing more of a light show or a programmed show, once you have an effect, let's say, same scenario, turns on, zooms in, zooms out, and then instead of turning off, you can actually have it then jump to your next look. For instance, that was my intro, and now we go to the angels scene. So you can have it jump right through that. We're going to keep on moving down here. Release. This is basically where you can go and set when the unit does release, what does it release, or if it's protected from release. Flash mode, again, isn't evident in edit mode. It is evident in live mode. This turns on, if you turn this on, it will void all the fade times on your different buttons and switches. So if you wanted to see exactly, let's say you had a 30-second fade up of a unit to test its dimming, instead of having to watch that 30-second timer every single time, if you just wanted to flash through, which is where flash comes from, flash through your different scenes, you can turn that on and it will void the fade time. I think fade is self-evident. You can turn this on and you can set your fade up and fade down times. However, I don't want that for my blackout button. Triggers. We will talk about edit port mapping very later at the very end. However, our buttons are edit Midi mapping, and this on express mode, you actually cannot Midi map. That is an additional feature you have to upgrade to. However, you do get keyboard mapping. For instance, if I wanted to, I'm a gamer, so my fingers automatically go into the WASD kind of configuration. So you can have A to B1 look, or if you're almost busking, you can have A, W, S, D, trigger all sorts of different looks. If you really wanted to kind of have really hands-on control of your different effects. Or if you just want to say, I need a fog burst and have that for B, for burst. You can press B and it'll burst, and then when you release it, it will release. Here you can edit your DMX mapping, and again, edit your port mapping, which will come in, we will go into deeply with the DMX RM. And here is actually another nifty little feature, is audio. So you can actually integrate an audio file into this button and cue, so it will play back. So I'm sure you can use this for so many different useful things, especially for people who are like DJs or heavily doing sound with lighting. You can adjust your volume here, etc., etc. Now, steps in this button here. Let me go to a look really fast that has multiple steps. So now, Actually, let me go to this other pan and tilt effect because it might be more self-evident. So we will get into the effects engine, but essentially what steps are is it's a new step into a process. So let's take that same principle again. You have your turn on, zoom in, zoom out, turn off, right? So for instance, your first step would be to turn on. Then your second step would be to turn off. It would be to zoom out. And you can select the fade time and how long that holds that time for. So you'd say, I want a 3-second fade out and then to hold for 3 seconds. And then your next step would be fade back in. Again, fade in time, then your hold time, and then your fade out. Your fade out time, and then fade out, and then how long to hold that. So essentially that description would be for 4 seconds. However, if you look at my rig here, it'll be more self-evident. So I'm just going to hold this, keep on moving down. So every step in this X and Y pan and tilt movement is a different location. So let's go back to the top here, I press play, it will go and fade through all these different steps, resulting in a pan and tilt effect. This is also the same when you're using color effects, all these different types of effects, or if you're just doing a standard keyless. This is actually similar to how CompuShow runs, and this is how I do all the demos inside the showroom. Some of, like, for instance, my CMY 300, which is a very workhorse, versatile beam spot wash fixture, I have probably 130 steps in one queue to be the demo show. There we go. I think that covers steps fairly well. You can set the time, you can copy, paste, and remove a certain step. I won't do that here because I want my fixtures to do that. One thing I actually forgot to mention that I want to go back and address on is actually this list view right here. And since we were just messing around with my moving heads, it reminded me. This right here is where you can set your invert pan, your invert tilt, or sweep pan and tilt right here. So let's say my focus spot 2X here was hung the wrong way. I can invert, what is this, the pan? Yep, I can invert my pan right here, and then that will fix that. And now we're going to go back to grid view. So we've gone over the different buttons, we've gone over the properties screen. Let's talk about this fader tab down here. I'm going to go over to general. Oh, here we go. So now this pops out. I'm going to go over to general, size it up so you guys can see this a little bit better. So, general essentially will have all your different lights patched all right next to each other. And this kind of correlates exactly to this patch screen. So our 7P hex IP starts at 14. So if you go along here to 14, this will be the first attribute for that next light. So it's a little hard to understand in this mode, so I don't really use general very often, but this is where it starts to get a little easier to understand. It breaks off into fixture types, and this is when I was talking about you can name these truss warmers. Another thing I haven't talked about here, which I will get to in a second, is this little 2D layout view. I do this when I am patching a new light, so what I can do, let's throw that in there. Let's throw that same CMY module back in here. Let's patch him. So now my CMY module is right there. So I can move him around, I can change his orientation. I just have it this way because this works. This is my work. This is the way it works best for me. Feel free to do it however works best for you. So now that we don't need that again, I am going to delete it. See you later. So now we're back to our edit screen. So our 7P hex IP. So you'll notice that these two fixtures down here were highlighted, and those are my 7P hex IPs. The way I have them orientated is that these are on the very bottom, the next is my UBH12, and these are my two focus spots. If you have a multi-cell fixture like your UBH12, each cell will come up as a separate block. to show its color mixing, and that will get evident eventually if you haven't seen it already. So our 7p hex, if you hover over here over this tab, you can see red, green, blue, white, amber, UV. You can hover over these to see the exact values. And then I'm going to go over to the focus spot because it'll be more a little self-evident again. If you have values such as, where's my gobo? UV shutter, dimmer, open. Haha, here's the gobos. So I can actually right-click on here, and then it'll show me all the different options within that 0 to 255 parameter I can choose from. So that's pretty self-evident. So let's say if I wanted the dimmer to be on, I can take this on, etc., etc. Same with the UBH12, and this is where I'm going to move into pallets because this is where it becomes very effective. In the certain channel mode, I have my linear bar here. It's just red, green, blue, white, red, green, amber, UV, etc., all the way down. There's no master dimmer or anything like that. So let's say I wanted to set this green effect. I would have to go and raise every single green fader, and that's just a waste of time. Let's talk about pallets. This is where it starts to get really easy and very user-friendly. This is where you can control all your different elements. So again, you can choose color, and I don't want to mess up my look, so I'm going to make a new look here. Start from scratch to show you guys. Actually, I'm going to start. Hold on here, technical difficulties. Oh, there it is. I thought the thing was frozen. I'm so dumb. Here we go. Let's start with red. Duplicate scene. There we go. Couldn't see it. So now, for instance, I can change the whole color of the bar. We'll throw the bar back up, Candace. Thank you. I can change the whole color with the bar just from my little CMY filter here. This is classic. You can do hue saturation, red, green, blue. However, I like this one. You can change that here. Moving over to my focus spot, I can change my pan and tilt with this X and Y encoder right here. I can change what color is on the color wheel. I can change what gobo is here. All the information is a lot easier to see. So if I want the gobos to clockwise rotate, this is the fader, slower to faster. I can throw in my prism. I can make it strobe. I can change the intensity of the strobe. Here's my master dimmer. Here's my UV dimmer. Oh, we can't see, sorry. There we go. So it's all essentially right there, ready for your viewing. So we talked about the palette. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, effects. The effect engine is actually very powerful with this program software. Let's talk about each different one. I actually have pre-recorded effects, so I don't have to do them all with you guys right here. So let's start at the bottom, work our way up. Add a matrix effect. So this is my matrix effect. Essentially what this will do is it will apply a color effect over a large variety of units, or a grid. Let me show you how that's done. So I'll take this look that I just made really fast, and let's apply a matrix effect over, there we go, apply a matrix effect over my, well actually I have the focus spot 2x selected here. So let's do it over for general. Sorry. Here we go. Now this will do what I want. We can actually drag this box over all my UBH12 and my pars, so that is creating essentially a matrix. Then you have so many different options. You can choose exactly what colors are in there. You can choose the color width, so if you want a more broad color scroll, or if you want everything to be separate, you can see down here in the corner. Your gradient, your direction, you can change the direction of it. So if you want it to go left from right, or if you want the color scroll up and down, or let's say you have like so many dots matrices and you want to do it over these, you can do the same thing, gradient position. This is how you set the timing of that effect. And here is really important that I bet you will trip you up on your very first time, is this new scene button, concurrent step button, include at set levels. So if you click new scene and hit generate, it will create a new scene / button up here for this. However, if you want to make it for the same effect, you can do on current step, include set levels, compression, essentially adding some phase to it, and then generate. And that will generate that same effect on here. Now, we went over matrix. Let's do pixel effect. Pixel effect, I will turn on matrix. Here is my plasma matrix effect, and this is actually only working over, let me turn this on so you can see it, only working over a group of lights as opposed to a large array of lights. So pixel over selected fixtures as opposed to a large group. So same thing, we will go in here under our 7p hexes, under this testing. Let's make this testing again so we're all clear. Testing, come on. Testing, there we go. So now I have these fixtures selected, so now they are operating as a rainbow. You can also do burst. As you can see, they're bursting, very bursty. Plasma is more of a liquid morphing. You can do chasers, effects, Night Rider, which is back and forth, as you can see down here. Lots of different effects in your pixel generation. And again, all the different customization options down below. I'm going to cancel that out. Our next effect, and this is pretty obvious, a pan and tilt effect. And I have my pan and tilt effect already recorded right here. Again, press play, and this is in the editor. It will record that. And as you can see, every different step is its own button. So that does limit you on how many effects you can have, which is why it's important to separate your lights into different groups so you can stack them on top of each other. Because you can have an effect on your truss warmers, then you can have an effect on your spots, and then you can have an effect on your UBH12, and then record those all together. But you can't have, if I have this red scene, it's not red because I have this selected. If I have this red scene, I can't have all these different effects on one time. So that would be a better time to have multiple different groups up here. So in my pan and tilt effect, hold on, let me grab my focus spot 2x's. Now we'll do pan and tilt. So you can choose what exactly kind of shape you want, random position, curve, or if you don't like any of those, you can actually make your own shape. So you can grab those, grab that there, kind of shift it around. Now we made a little bit of a smiley face because we're all smiles here. Number of points, you can change it to have as unlimited amount of different points you can use or as little as you want. And then the phasing value. So let's go back to 4. Set this at some weird shape so you can see the differences. And now my phasing value, it will actually show the little dot behind there tracking the second unit. So now I have a nice little phasing. Compression, I lied earlier, compression actually makes the effect less steps as opposed to more. And then I can hit generate, and then there you go, there's your pan and tilt effect. I'm going to close out of this, because that's exactly how I did my pan and tilt effect. And now with the curve effect. The curve effect is actually very useful because it actually, let me show you. You can assign it to any different attribute. So I have my focus spot 2x's here, and you can, let's say, we'll do a sine curve, change my rate back to what it was. So essentially you can make a parameter go up to 255, then back down, then back up, and back down, et cetera, over and over again. You can change the type of curve you want from that selector, and then from here, rate, size, phase, offset, phasing value. So let's say I want this to do on my pan. Now my pan will, well, let's do it on my tilt as well. So now my pan and tilt are all following this function. So you can select it multiple at once. So for color wheel, now we can go through and it'll change colors, et cetera, all the way down. And you can assign it to any different attributes. So you can make some crazy different and simple effects all from this little generator right here. You can get really cool custom effects from this. All right, I think that's probably going to be the most complicated thing we're going to talk about in this video. Now we'll go to live mode. So now we talked about all the different effects, palette, faders, et cetera. Now let's deselect this and go into my live mode. So I have my different buttons here: blackout, red, green, blue, and basically these have some have fades to them, some don't. I have RGB cycles, and then just to go back and reiterate, RGB cycle has 3 different steps to it. So over on the side here, we can either choose to go next, back. You can pause this, see how it stopped this timer right here. Continue. We have a blackout button, fade button. This will lock it. So essentially, if you, again, have programmers, I mean, if you have a non-programmer running this console, let's say at a church, you can lock all these cues out so they can't change them. You can create a live scene from these. You can create live latest take precedent scene. You can reset. There's so many different areas of control. You can have them cycle through beats per minute. You can either, and through that beats per minute, you can either set that through an audio through your laptop integrated microphone. You can tap to set your BPM, or you can actually have a MIDI input of your BPM, and you can choose what exact input you can have from here, or pulse auto manual. Lots of different ways you can trigger this, and of course, master trimmer right here on the side. And like I said before, each group can only have one selected, which is why I have my truss warmers here and there, so I can have these selected if this isn't selected. Now the only thing I haven't gone over is this show tab. And this is where I'm actually going to go out of this program and read something from the website. So right here at the bottom of the myDMX 3.0 control page, I'll read this. These are additional charge upgrades that you are actually available. So like I said before, MIDI and MIDI devices to be able to use to control. This says easy remote, but this is exactly how you use the show function. So the show function, and I'm going to move over to, I believe, this is a picture of the show function. You can actually click and drag different, see if I wanted the CMY different color circle for my pars, I can actually click and drag that into my show mode and then create my own user interface. So you can basically create your own custom overlay to control the lights and to control your rig exactly how you want to use it. And then this will also port over to the Easy Remote app. You can either do on iOS or Android, and you can control myDMX 3.0 from your phone with that show mode. So either you can control it from your phone, or you can still control it from your own laptop and just have a really easy to use layout, or if you have a touch screen, even better. Other additional things you need doing that also you can buy: multiple universes, like I said before, 8-port contacts, and I'll show you exactly what those are in a little bit. And standalone, again, we'll talk about more about that. You basically can purchase more standalone features, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the show mode, and maybe we can make another video, but I'm trying to keep this video under an hour just for effectiveness. So show tab, not included features. All right, now last but not least, let's talk about those dry contact ports and live port triggering. So let's go back to my edit screen. Candace, if you can take the camera back onto me, I'm going to show what these live ports are and get a nice tight shot. So while she's doing that, there's two different dongles. You have this dongle, which is the regular myDMX 3.0. And then you also have the myDMX RM here. So with this is they're basically essentially this very same exact thing. They both can trigger manual pre-programmed scenes through these buttons right here, except this is, I think, a very useful unit. We'll talk about that in a second. So on this port, you have these dry contacts here. Very nice, perfect. You have these dry contacts here, and these can be implemented for dry contacts. So if you wanted to have more of a wall-mounted solution or permanent architectural solution, you can buy the upgrade to use these to integrate to your architectural controller. USB port right here, this actually links into your laptop so you can control and send and feed power and data to this unit. And then you have your ports here on the side. So this is the original 3.0, there it is, dongle. Now, I want to show the RM. That's a great shot, thank you, Candace. So this is a 19-inch rack mount unit, and you'll see it has 1 through 15, and then at the very end here is B for blackout. Very similar in terms of on the back. Let me see if I can flip it over here. You have your power in and out. You have your power. You have your basically data USB port cable, and you have your 2 DMX outs here, a 3-pin and 5-pin. Excuse my bad cable. So that's perfect right there, Candace. So I'm going to need a double shot, half of this and then another half of the laptop so I can show them exactly what this does. Live port triggering. Perfect. So now I can essentially, I've already gone and pre-mapped this, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. You can hit 1 and it will jump to a screen. So on my laptop here, let me make it so you can see it. On my laptop here, it actually selected my red screen. I can go to number 2. It'll select, oh, I'm sorry, I am in edit mode. If I go to live, this will work a lot better. Go press 1, it will now fade in my lights to red, green, blue. See how it's all triggering those? And that's called live port triggering. Now, Candace, you can not show the laptop and just show the rig and me. Perfect, thank you. So now, as you can see, it's live port triggering. And this is really useful, again, for bars, nightclubs. Anyone that doesn't have a lighting programmer 24/7 around, you can just pre-program these and they will do their job, you know? You don't have to have someone there 24/7 monitoring the lights. A manager can simply walk up. And just for this, since we are based in LA, I did make some examples for sports teams. So let's see here. This right here is going to be my Lakers look. So I have purple and gold. My next one here is a Chargers / the Galaxy. There you go. Shout out Brian for his LA Galaxy fans. I don't actually think he's an LA Galaxy fan. I think he likes some Manchester team or something. I don't know. Anyways, we have a Dodgers look. So for a bar, someone that has, like, you know, showing games when the pandemic's over, that is, and we all get to open back up, you can switch between your lights just as simple as a button, and you can label these as well. Angels, red and white. And then 14, which is my example for a church look, you can have your student volunteer or whatever come up and change all these different looks. And this can be, okay, now the pastor's speaking down look. This is just a general example. And then I haven't programmed anything into 15 because I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And then B, either you can store whatever look you want on there, but I store my blackout look as that's what it's supposed to be meant for. All right, we can come back and just do the screen again. Thank you. So let's show you exactly how to map these ports. So let's take my testing switch. This doesn't look like a very good look, but I don't really care. So either I can go over here on my edit screen and hit edit port mapping, enable port triggering. Then, since I have my myDMX 3.0 RM plugged in, here's the rack, it pops right up. And as you'll see, there's stars next to all these different ports. And that's because there's already something assigned to them. So for this one, I'm going to assign it to port 15. So now, every time I press port 15, this will trigger. And OK, so let's go back to my live look. We're on blackout, so we go to, I think this is the Dodgers look. Yep, now 15. Well, now we went to that exact look, my testing look. This is really cool because, like I said, you can just run with this live. There's one last feature I want to bring up regarding the RM, and that's actually because it can run standalone. So right now we are doing live port triggering. So I press the port and it live triggers into the software different looks. But what I can do, if we could switch back to my laptop, is we can actually put all these different looks saved into the RM and completely disconnect my laptop for this. So even if you're doing rental or production environments and you want something super easy, something super foolproof, no one can change it once you program it for them. You go under Tools here, under Standalone, and this is my myDMX 3.0 rack. I've already assigned all the ports, so you need to assign the ports, and then all I'm going to do is grab all these and then drag them into my device. And I'm also, this was my testing switch that I didn't use, but we're going to do testing right at the end there as well. Now we are going to write this, and it's going to write it into the device, memory written successfully. Now I can press OK. Now I'm going to do something really dramatic here. Say goodbye to my laptop. That's going away. The USB plug on the back is getting unplugged. And now nothing is connected to the actual laptop itself other than my power and my data cable. And now I still have my standalone triggering. So all saved in here, including number 15, my generic look. So foolproof. No one can change this. No one can edit it. I mean, they could break it, but then they'd have to pay for it. And, well, that's all. That's all we're going to be covering for today. Again, just a basic general overlook and look into myDMX 3.0. Do we have any questions or anything that came up that anyone had?
There was a question about what to click on, or what button selects to record and assign a playback button.
Yeah, we'll have to save that for a different video, but essentially you have your next buttons here, and you can assign it that way, or you can go into your show and trigger it that way. Or actually, one of my favorite ways is to actually hook up a MIDI console and MIDI control it through that. That would be my favorite way of doing it, but like I said, with each software, each different console comes its own user. Every single user is going to operate it differently. So I encourage you to go ahead and try out for yourself and explore the different options you can to exactly doing that, whether it's clicking, pressing the next button, assigning these in the exact way you want them. For instance, I can take my green. This is in live, so I can't do it there. I can take my green, and I don't want it there. I can just put it down here. So from there, go back to my live mode. Now, as I trigger these, they are now in order. So you can do it that way as well. Hope that answers your question.
And then there was a comment about, or asking if you could talk more about recording scenes.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll just go over this really quickly. It's super simple. We're gonna all of this is done in our Edit tab. One thing that I have learned to do about this software, if you have anything going, go ahead and unselect it. Of course, I disconnected from the dongle, which I could plug it back in and it would work. But all you need to do is hit this button right here, and this would add another scene. And like I said before, only one scene can be selected in all of your group. This is a group, General Looks group. These are all one button in a group. So I can only select one of these at a time. This Truss Warmers is a group, so I can continue to add group. This can be red, this can be blue, this can be green, etc., etc. Same thing with spot. So you can make different looks by a combination of different groups. So this can be just your pars, just your spot, so you can record groups. You can make looks that way. Or what I like to do and this is how I generally run, is do general looks and program everything into that one specific look. And let's go to my scene under Edit, turn that off, Edit, Scene. So this is a brand new, we haven't touched this at all. I'm going to make this bigger so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. So let's say I want my 7p hexes to be green. Either I can go here and look and turn on every single green LED, which for this is pretty simple. And you have to know a little bit about moving heads themselves and how they work. So this is my shutter. I can either right click and do shutter open, and this is my master dimmer. So I'd have to turn on my master dimmer, and as you can see here, let me zoom in a bit. Now, and this 2D is exactly how a 2D plan would work. So now I'll pretend like my lights are green down here. Or you can go into Palette under my 7p hexes. And assign them that way as well. Oh, I don't have them selected. There it is. So you have to have these selected over here, and then you can start to move these around, as you can see right there. And then you would, so our 7px's are turned on. Then for our spoke of spot 2x's, we would need to turn them on first, and we can go to dimmer, full, shutter open. And then from there, we can grab our pan and tilt and move it into position where we want. UBH12, same thing. We want that green, woohoo. Now, it's done. You have essentially built your look. Now, every time I go back to that look, it's the same thing. See how these are green? Now you're done recording. And let's say you wanted to add another step and change these bars to blue. Now I'm on step 2. Going to blue. Now if I wanted to make the bars purple, make another step, step 3, step 4, step 5, etc., etc., etc. Now these will all play back together. See how they're changing color? And now the rest of these will be the same since we haven't made any changes. So between the fader tab, like I said, it would be a pain in the butt to replicate this color across all the cells of this. It's so much easier just to do palette. And there you go, you've recorded a scene. And like I said in the very beginning, I'll just reiterate one last time. You can take this red scene, duplicate it, and you have the same exact scene, and you can change it from there. Let's say I just want the same exact look, but I want it in orange. So I can go and boom, orange. Focus spot 2. Actually, those were already on there, orange color. And then 7p hex, move it to orange. So now you have the same exact look, same exact pan and tilt values, everything's the same, and you just change the color. That's my favorite way of programming because work smarter, not harder has been a valuable saying that I've tried to incorporate into all my programming. That being said, anything else? All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. It's been a blast. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you. We hear you. We see you. We're all waiting till we can get back into play. And thank you for joining us. Wish you the best. Thank you.